You guys smell that? Smells like some rich assholes are about to get the crap kicked out of them. Smells a lot better than you'd think. What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Leverage Redemption Season 2, Episode 1, The Debutante Job. So I was excited to jump back into this, and honestly, I just kind of wanted a couple of quick seasons to get out of the way so I can get back to Marvel. And Leverage Redemption is one that I enjoyed the first season. I was excited to see what Season 2 held, and honestly, knowing that there's a Season 3 as well, I'm excited to see what they decided to do with it there. From this first episode, I will say there were definitely some fun parts, but there are some of the things that I do feel I remember in the first season not enjoying as much, because while the original Leverage did definitely have its goofy moments, I still felt that the overall drama of the show still grounded it in a very nice way. And I don't think that's something Redemption did very well. I think overall it was still good, but it felt a lot more fantastical and not as real as the original series was. And the second season continues a lot of that feeling. As far as the story in this one, I really thought this was going to be a bigger story, but it feels like it's already wrapped up. Now, granted, this guy could still come back, but his story does feel like he's about to get turned on by all these generals that are arresting him when he gets back home. But with a guy this powerful that has this much control in his country, you would think that would be a good villain to return and have enough power to try to destroy the team. So I was really surprised when there's this sense of finality about the conclusion. But a lot of this was just moving pieces. They get to know the situation, find some information about this guy, find out they're going to take him down, get into his party, and that's just kind of it. You know, they blow a hole in the wall, expose what he's doing to a Scotland Yard agent. Pretty simplistic in the end. I will say there are a couple of plot holes that need to be filled. First of all, I will say I think Prime Video screwed up for me. Because the scene where Sophie is talking to this, I don't remember his name now, Ralphie or something like that. She was talking to him because apparently she's the one he wrote this very famous song about back in the day. And Brianna's in the truck saying she needs to listen to the song. It just suddenly cut to black. There was no fade out. There was no cue that it seemed like it was going to commercial. And then when we get to the end, there are a couple of scenes that I didn't recognize at all. Them planning the charges on the wall, Sophie telling him to invite some people. Maybe they just skipped over that and it was supposed to show this is what happened that we missed before. But to me, it felt more like Prime Video glitched and I didn't get to see a couple of scenes that maybe would have filled in some gaps there. So if anybody can tell me whether or not I missed a scene there, basically it went from Brianna in the truck saying, I need to listen to that song, and then it went to commercial very abruptly, and then came back and they were at the party. I don't even remember the name of the bad guy now, but they were at his party for his daughter. But a couple of plot holes that I do feel like need to be filled. First of all, Brianna's in this room for security, and the daughter gets in there with her boyfriend, and she doesn't ask any questions outside of, what are you doing in here? I know she doesn't like her dad. I know she's not a fan of what he's doing. Still feels a little odd that she would not question more how somebody got into a security room when they're not supposed to be. So that felt like it was just sort of skipped over. On top of that, the very end, whenever they blow the hole into the wall of this Ralphie guy's basement, where were Elliot, Hardison, and the two guys that were in there? What happened to them? Because as far as I can tell, it's a pretty small room. I feel like an explosion would have done some damage to them. So did they sneak out of the room whenever the bad guy wasn't looking? And they were just hiding somewhere in the basement whenever they came around? Like, what happened there? Because they couldn't have hid in that room whenever the explosion went off, because they would be dead. The wall would have crushed them whenever it got blown in there. So those were just a couple of little story moments that I feel like were a little bit lazily put together and not really well thought out, and so it left me with a lot of questions that I don't think are going to get answered. But outside of that, I did have a couple of issues with some of the personal stuff. First of all, getting Harry back involved did feel a little sudden. I can't fully remember how the first season ended, why he went back to being a lawyer, because it has been a while since I've talked about the show, but it did feel very quick. And I know they made a reference at the end, Sophie was saying it was a little too easy to pull you back in, so it seemed like he wanted to be in there, but I do feel like there should have been maybe a little bit more build up to him returning. On top of that, it does feel like they're probably building a romance between Sophie and Harry, and that's not too surprising in my mind, since he did kind of take Nate's spot on the team. He's not doing the Nate role or anything, but he is the slightly older man on the team that kind of complements Sophie as far as what she's doing, so it makes sense, I suppose. But I think the most frustrating thing outside of the main story is Hardison and Brianna, their back and forth. I get it, sibling rivalry, I understand all of that. It did feel like it went on a little too long, and then just out of nowhere suddenly got very serious. Because for most of the episode, they're just going back and forth, and it's all jokes. It's very clearly meant for comedy's sake. The way that they're both acting it's not real. It doesn't feel like real people. It feels more like a sitcom. And then suddenly out of nowhere, Hardison said something to her. I can't remember what it was now, but it was at the party. All of a sudden she's just like, look, I'm my own person, okay? I'm not you. And then it's like this emotional music, and he's looking at her all emotional. I'm like, whoa, hang on. This was a story for a sitcom where two siblings are going back and forth, constantly changing each other's stuff, constantly saying that they're the better at what they're doing. And now all of a sudden it's, oh, Hardison, you gotta respect her, man. You can't be disrespecting her just because she's younger than you. She knows what she's doing, man. It just came out of nowhere. It was such tonal whiplash for their story that it completely took me out of the moment. But even when they have the reconciliation at the end, it's more so Hardison apologizes to her, and then she just makes jokes at his expense. Like, her whole respect thing for him is more so about the fact that he's old. And that's not really an apology for changing a lot of his stuff whenever he has been doing this longer than her. And that's the thing. I do feel like anytime a story like this is approached in video games and TV shows and movies, it always does feel, at least these days, it feels like the younger, spunky, go-getter character is always in the right, and the older, more wise character is in the wrong for trying to be like, no, I know more than you, even though they do most of the time. The thing is, there is a place for the older characters that don't want to change, that don't see that there is a better way to do something because things have gotten quicker or more modern or something like that. I've seen that story done well in the past, but this is just more so she thinks she knows better than him, and she thinks her way is better for the team. And in reality, nobody really cares how they do it because they're not that in depth on the technical side of things. So it's more so a personal preference. She prefers to do one way, he prefers to do another way, and that's why they're butting heads. They both have their own preferred way to handle situations. It would be like an older janitor who likes to mop clockwise, and then a younger janitor comes in and decides to mop counterclockwise, and then they start butting heads about whose way is better. Who cares? As long as the job is getting done. So that's why I don't understand why this turned from look at the way I do it. You're changing my stuff, really? Well, yeah, because my way's better. I thought that whole thing was just meant for laughs. Honestly, to be fair, it wasn't that funny to begin with. But then to all of a sudden turn it into no, look, you have to respect the fact that she's good at this too. She knows what she's doing. It just came out of nowhere and didn't make a whole lot of sense for their story. So definitely some flaws in this first episode, but overall, still enjoyed it. Still had a good time. Still had some good laughs as well. I think the chemistry between these characters is still very apparent, and it's probably one of the strongest parts of this series as a whole. So hopefully they can keep that going and just maybe make the stories a bit more interesting. But with all that being said, we move on to the next one. I'll see you guys there in just a second. And now episode 2, The One Man's Trash Job. A few things about this episode that stood out to me. First of all, very good premise as far as the setup for screwing over this one guy who's very clearly an awful person, dealing with stolen art, dealing with selling a lot of stolen art, but also looking to just dump trash into the ocean. So obviously the green message is there, but I liked how they set it up, how they took him down as well. It felt very old school Leverage, and the way things seemed to go wrong, it was all part of the plan at the end. I feel like the reveal in those episodes are always the fun part. Getting to see how everything was not exactly as it seemed, which some of it was pretty obvious, like Arthur getting shot. It was pretty obvious it was going to be a fake gun. I really wasn't sure if he was actually involved, because I could see that being part of the final thing where he thinks he's going to get one over on Sophie, but actually she accounted for that and planned for him to turn on her. But it was kind of nice to be surprised by the fact that no, he actually was a part of the con. It also does make the one part I was going to nitpick where he kept trying to tell Hammond. Took me a second to remember the name. He was trying to tell Hammond that it was all a con, but he kept stopping right as Hammond cut him off. And I'm thinking, okay, just say it's a con. Just say it's a con. You don't have to sit here and go through this whole spiel about, no, you don't understand this guy and this guy and this guy and that thing. It felt weird, but knowing he was actually in on this and this was all part of the plan, at least that now makes a lot more sense. But most of the moving pieces in this were really fun. Getting to see Harry take on this role of the Chechen was really funny. The fact that he got so into the accent, but Parker and Brianna were just so put off by it. It was kind of funny. Obviously, Elliot, Parker, Brianna, they all played their parts in the con as well. I will say, for Brianna, I was reminded in this episode one of the things why I'm not a huge fan of her character, and it's the self-righteousness, oh, these guys just dumping stuff in the ocean. In fact, that's what all plastics are. They just get dumped in the ocean. So if you're eating plastics, you're part of the problem. That self-righteous BS that we see all the time but just the way she attacks Harry for eating out of a plastic container, and then talking to Sophie about like, oh, but why aren't we going after all the companies that are producing this stuff? Why can't we tackle the bigger picture? It was setting up to be a very frustrating story, in my opinion. But thankfully, they took a more realistic and more controlled approach to it, which is kind of what needs to happen in real life anyway. Because I'm fully on board for trying to be kinder to the earth, I guess is the best way to put it. But, tossing trash in the ocean, of course, nobody wants that. But it does feel like for a lot of people, it's all or nothing. It's either you're doing everything you can to help it or you're not doing enough. Even if you're taking steps, even if you're doing certain things to help out, like Sophie said, little baby steps, even that is not enough because you're not fixing the whole issue. You need to fix the entire issue or else you're not doing enough. So I was really worried that was kind of going to be Brianna's story for this one, and she was going to try to do more and maybe even mess up the con in the process. But thankfully, by the end of it, it kind of showed she even felt proud of the fact that they helped Dee Dee and fix this one problem. And I think that's a good message for anybody that is trying to solve all of the problems at once. Sometimes it's nice to just start on the one issue. I mean, this applies to a lot of things in life. If you're struggling, if you have like a big project to handle or a lot of things to do, sometimes it's nice to just do the first thing first. Get the first thing done, and that can kind of help you get rolling. I mean, for my YouTube channels, it's kind of the same thing. Sometimes I think about all the videos I need to get recorded, all the stuff that I need to get edited. Sometimes I look at it and think, this is a lot. And I get very overwhelmed and I end up not doing enough. And now I'm rushing to try to get out the videos on the schedule that I've set for myself. So I've definitely been guilty of kind of falling into that trap before of wanting to do it all at once. But sometimes it is good to just take the one thing at a time first, get the first thing knocked out, and then from there you can kind of start narrowing things down one at a time. Focus on only one thing instead of the big picture. Just wanted to say it was nice to see that they took that approach with it because it felt a lot more natural, I suppose. There's a word that I'm not finding right now. I'm trying to think of. Basically not over-exaggerated, not something that is extremist and taking a massive stand on an issue. It was a nice message, I think. Whether it's focused on trying to save the planet or focused on just your daily life. I think it's a good message that we can take from this episode. But I think that's about it for this one. So much more leverage feeling episode in this one. It still did have its goofy moments for sure. And it, like I said in the first episode review, it still does feel a little more disconnected from reality than the original show did. But this was a lot more of the entertainment that I'm expecting to see. And I had fun with it. So with that being said, though, that's it for these first two episodes. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on these first two? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe to future Leverage Redemption reviews. Also check out the channel. We have a lot of other reviews on here, so check those out if you have time. But until next time, I hope you guys have a great day. And I will talk to you all later. Peace out.